I'm living out of my empty cargo van while I convert it into a home all by myself. Here are the mistakes I've made so far. Okay, can y'all hear me? Hello? I wanted to do a video to tell you guys where I'm at as far as what's up ahead on the build, what I've done on the build, mistakes I've made in the build, things that I've learned on the build. Let's chat. Come with me into my home. But first we need some light. All right, you guys ready? Let there be light. This is, I don't know if you can see the dimmer, but I'm really proud of these. This was one of the first things that I envisioned about a van when I first started dreaming about van life, maybe 8-10 years ago, was having inset LED strip lights that are dimmable. Yes. And you can see right here, the switch still isn't actually mounted, but there's a pretty little gold faceplate that I'm going to have for my switch. Don't come at me because this tiny little portion of the ceiling is still not done because I am in the phase of, should I go ahead and mount my Starlink on the roof? Should I not? The thought process there is mounting it on the roof would mean that if I ever wanted to take it down and it was raining, I'd have 2 cables up there that are permanently mounted, essentially, because once you have an entry gland, those cables have heads that are too big to obviously come down through the gland. So when you remove the Starlink, you're unplugging it. And then if I needed to use it somewhere else, I'd have alternate plugs that I get. Like, someone just drove by and he actually had a really sick mountain bike and he was like totally breaking neck on this whole situation here. So I'm really big into mountain biking, if you guys don't know, but I'm always curious when someone has a really nice bike. I'm like, hey. I think one of the most popular comments or concerns or questions that I get is, oh my gosh, like, how do you do this whole van build on your own? Isn't it hard? And honestly, once you're in the flow of a project, it's amazing. Like, I can do it. Yes, there's bumps, but I feel great. But then there's like times where I get into like a freeze state. So like right now, I'm waiting on my bed slats to be delivered and I don't want to install the bed support beams until I have the bed slats because I'm so visual. I don't want to like measure it. I want to actually have the slats here to be able to set on the bed beams before I mount the bed beams. So the point is right now I'm like in an interim waiting phase and sometimes I like freeze up and I don't know. If I go like 2 days without working on the van, I honestly feel a little bit guilty. I'm not sure why, but I do. A mistake that I did make, and it's not the biggest deal, but for anyone who is watching this video, if you haven't started building your van yet, this is important thing to consider. So if you look at my floor, which is 1/2 inch Baltic birch, and then underneath it, I have that pinky foam with like the pink panther on it, whatever that pink foam is. Anyway, all around the edges of the van, there's probably like a good 1/2 inch margin, maybe a little bit less in some places, but I wish, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago when I started this van build, I would have already gone ahead and sealed that up. There's been some crickets that have gotten under my van floor and they've been there for like weeks and they make their little crickety noise. So I just wonder what has kind of made its way under my floor. Another thing that I'm stuck at is the gaps and cracks, which I've seen most people use to fill. It's like a foam that expands to fill the edge, is super freaking toxic. And it can, who's that? Just somebody taking out their garbage. Anyway, it's super toxic and it continue to off gas like with high heat. So you're in a hot place and this van gets really hot in here. I don't want to use it because it's so freaking toxic and it's especially toxic when it's not cured yet. So I'm like stuck there. I'm thinking about maybe just smushing more Havelock wool in the cracks, but there you go. I went ahead and I sold my last what I thought was an extra box of Havelock wool because I thought I didn't need it. Anyway, on to the next thing. Let's see what else. So this is really good information for anyone who wants to make a ceiling the way I made my ceiling. One really important thing to consider is the wood that you get. And I don't know why this birch that I bought, it's like birch plywood that I bought from a millworking company. So it's 1/4 inch and 3 inches, 4 inches wide, but it's super bendy and super flexible. And I don't understand because when I bought like the tiger ply, I think I even have some here. So this is 1/4 inch. When I bought this is super stiff. Look at this. But these bend like Gumby. So the issue is I only have furring strips every 3 feet. So they've started just slightly to bend down a little bit. Now it's nothing crazy. They can only bend down so much because they are screwed in, but something to consider if you're going to do a ceiling like this. Other than that, the ceiling install went pretty smoothly. I would just say if you're able to put some furring strips that go perpendicular to the furring strips that are going across this way, that would help with your ceiling. Also, if you're using Havelock wool, because I didn't use any spray adhesive. Again, I didn't want it, was too toxic. So the Havelock wool is being held up by like hemp strands of like string or whatever, but it does kind of bow down a little, and that further in some ways is going to push down on my planks. So sorry, I got distracted. Somebody just pulled in next to me. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. All right. Focus. And there's a fly up there. Squirrel. Just kidding. Okay. Perpendicular furring strips, especially if you're going to have very thin wood, is helpful because it's going to keep your insulation up. Now, I don't know, maybe if you're using that Thinsulate stuff, I definitely wouldn't recommend it because it's basically all microplastics that are going to be falling down on you. Another thing that I didn't know, like I've always said, the thing that is the biggest challenge for me is wood filler, sanding, painting. Go figure. I can do electrical, but those things are hard for me because I want everything to look perfect. If you see here, I went ahead and I already painted. This is like my headboard for my bed. I already painted this. I did my lime wash. And then I had to put it up, which means I have exposed screws and it just doesn't look as nice. Now I did sand some of it down where the screws were, added some wood filler, sanded it, and then tried to just do lime wash in the tiny places. But if you look really close, you can kind of tell that like this lime wash was done later. Also, when I add the rest of my paneling for my walls up here, it's not going to like match right, or I'm going to have to put some wood filler here. So I might end up having to sand a lot of this down to make it look even. So when you're thinking about painting or when to paint, the idea would be paint after you put your screws in. The same thing with all of my ceiling slats. I painted them first and then put the screws in. And then I had to go and individually, I use white caulk to try and hide the screw holes a little bit. It's not perfect. And that was a little bit of a bummer just because I had envisioned white, no imperfections on the ceiling. I guess even in the video, honestly, you can't really see the screws too bad, but that's just something to consider too. Why is that so hot? The metal on that switch is really hot. I don't like that. Something else to consider. I have a mountain bike, so I need to mount my bed up a lot higher than most people will mount their beds. And I didn't plan how I was going to mount the bed before I put my framing in the bed area, which was silly. One of the errors that I ran into was these beams here that are going to be holding the bed frame were not initially, when they were installed, high enough. And I'm going to show you why. This is the bracket that I am going to use to install my bed beams. The bracket is mounted down here, which it had to originally be because these beams were much narrower. Then the beam would sit at the wrong height in the bracket, and then the mattress wouldn't be able to clear what in here is like metal framing of the van. The original ones had to be ripped out, taller ones had to be put in so the brackets could be mounted up higher. I can't find my mic, but there will be 2 more bed beams, and then this will allow my bike to clear. And then the bike handlebars will clear outside here because the bike handlebars are a lot higher than the rest of the bike. That way I can have my bed down a little bit lower. As it is, there's not that much sitting room on top of the mattress. I want to get a 5-inch mattress. I think it's a 6-inch mattress. Yet another mistake I made was not waiting to install my bed before installing my alternator charger, my DC to DC charger, because now I have this wire that's running across the van, which when the bed is installed, it's going to be going up underneath the bed rail. That's going to be there and it'll be nice and safe. Obviously, this is not like an ideal situation because I could potentially rip it out of the DC to DC charger. But let me tell you, I had the whole like step area of the van taken apart. I was in my van's battery component situation and I just wanted to get it done. So I just went ahead and did it. And when I install the bed, this will be able to be safely placed away, which won't be long now because those slats will be arriving on the 18th. This is the power that goes all the way to the front. It goes through the driver's seat column and it continues to travel down through here. And then under that footplate right there is the van's house battery. And that's where the positive lug and the fuse are to power the DC to DC charger. So yeah, I had all of this taken apart and I didn't want to have a day lost of work. So I went ahead and connected that cable. And if I need to, I can just disconnect it. But that's why I have that wire like that across the van. Another mistake that I made that kind of makes me sad, but it's not that big of a deal, is using the wrong drill bits for wood. So I don't really know anything about woodworking. I'm just learning as I go. And some of these nuanced things nobody really talks about. But I had metal drill bits that are meant through drilling through metal. And I used those drill bits to drill my holes in my door panel wood, and that was a huge problem because I had a ton of tear out. You can kind of see it here. It doesn't look very nice, but you live and you learn, and now I have some nice wooden drill bits that have like a severe point that helps to really cut through the wood without getting any tear out. So as far as things that I'm looking forward to on the build, what is next on the build is definitely going to be the bed. So just waiting on those slats to come. Essentially, it's like your traditional bed where you have those wooden slats that go perpendicular to your bed frame. That's what I'm going to be doing in here. And then I have to order my water tank. It's going to be a wheel well water tank that's going to go over the driver's side wheel well, and it's going to be a 40-gallon tank. Where I'm stuck right now, speaking of being frozen, is a lot of the wheel well water tanks that I'm finding have that California prop warning. Now, I know that a lot of things, even things that are grown in soil that have naturally occurring arsenic, have that prop warning, but I just can't bring myself to buy a water tank when I don't even know really what the company is putting in that plastic. So I'm kind of stuck there. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know. And I have to get some flooring down to protect this plywood. I want to use marmoleum. It's different than vinyl flooring or linoleum because that stuff really off gases, and it off gases for a long time. In addition, you have to use some pretty gnarly toxic glue to lay it all down. So I'm kind of stuck there. Marmoleum is kind of what you see in like hospitals and stuff. A lot of it is like kind of like brighter colors. It's either brighter colors or like grays or whites. So I'm kind of stuck there too. But I have gotten a lot done so far on the build. I think that's it. I'm so glad you guys are here. This is my true absolute dream. I have never been happier in my 35 years of life, honestly, than I am right now building this van. It's been a little tricky, but I have my eye on the prize and I really am enjoying the process and can't wait for the build to be completely done. If you guys could subscribe, it would really, really help me out and it would mean a ton. Feel free to leave any comments, any suggestions, and I will see you on the next one.